Okay, for the installation part of the video, what we're going to do is take an actual example, an actual house, actually a duplex. And we're going to go ahead and do a complete lighting job on it and show you step for step what we go through. I've got behind me a sketch of the duplex. This here is the front view, so if you stood out by the road looking at the house, this is what you would see. You can see that it's very symmetrical. What you can't tell from the sketch is that there's actually a gutter here and a gutter here. Right here there's actually a downspout on each side, which we're going to also pick up because we like to clip the gutters and then tie wrap the downspouts. And so you can see right there we've already got sort of an outline started. Another thing that we're going to do is there's also a gutter that goes across here that we're going to light. We may put a whole separate string of lights right on this peak. The way this is set up, and I should actually finish this drawing because I don't show the lower roof, but there's this lower roof right here. Whereas when you look at either side of the house, it's a gable roof, you know, it's like an A-frame. Whereas this very top part is what they call a hip roof. Well, you can see it here from the top view. You know, here's our front doors, here's our garage. You know, basically we're just taking this and spinning it on its side, so to speak, so we can look straight down at it. Up here what we're doing is just looking at the front half of it because we're only lighting the front of the house, so we don't necessarily care what's going on in the back. This gutter here actually continues in back to this lower roof, so it goes back probably about that far, probably about halfway. The reason I'm focusing on the gutters is because we like to clip the gutters, as I've said many times before. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to design a system that's got lights clipped to the upper gutter. Then we're also going to do this gutter here, which of course is the same as this gutter here, but then pick up the downspouts. Now, one of our considerations is that we're going to have a timer in this garage here on this side. And so all the wires are going to have to come into the garage here on this side. Any wires that are on this side of the house, we don't want to run across the ground because it has to go across the driveway. Or maybe you could go back up around the garage doors if you had to and sort of staple it or tie wrap it up there. But ideally what you would do is you would design your system so that when the light strands come down off of the house, they come down over on this side. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a different colored magic marker here. This red line will represent the actual lights. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it to where there's a run of lights up this downspout. It's going to continue across this gutter, and then it's going to not really stop, it's going to jump up to this gutter. It's going to jump up back around to the back side of it and then come down and across, and then at this point it's going to come down. Let me draw that same thing here. And so where this comes down, it's actually going to come down like this into the garage. So what I'm going to have to measure is all of this distance and this distance, see what that length is, and make sure it's not past my 125 feet that I want to stay within. Because remember, I'm using 1 foot spacing, 5-watt bulbs. I've determined by building in a nice safety factor, I don't ever want one single strand of lights to contain more than 125 bulbs. Again, with a 5-watt incandescent bulb. And so by wiring it this way, that allows my cable to drop down right next to the garage where the timer is going to be. I will also, of course, have a second strand of lights that will come up the opposite side downspout across the gutter and then drop down with this one. Of course, I'm going to measure everything first. I'm going to end up with the downspouts, the gutters, and then the upper gutter, but this being one strand and that being a shorter strand. I'm also going to show you how to do lights around windows. I'm going to do these 2 windows using one technique. I'm going to do these 2 windows here using an entirely different technique. And then I'm going to actually put lights around the garage doors and maybe use an entirely different technique again. And so when we're all done, it's going to look something like this. Now, one thing that I've already done is I've already measured this shorter piece. And so I went up and measured what it takes to go across this gutter, down the downspout. One thing that I decided to do when I was measuring, right here next to the front door, there is a wrought iron handrail on either side of both of these front doors. And and then also, by the way, there's some steps that lead up to the front door, which is why there's the handrail, because it's steps and a little porch. Of course, they always put handrail on that, right? So what I'm going to do is, instead of going all the way to the ground here, I'm just going to tie in to the handrail. Not really tie in, but just sort of pick up the handrail, and I'm going to tie wrap lights to the underneath side of the wrought iron handrail, and so that will be one continuous loop. I've also already measured the load cable, which is basically the built-in extension cord. It's made out of the same wire that your regular light wire is made out of, but it just doesn't have the sockets mounted to it. And so I'm going to go ahead and splice in a section that I measured to be I measured 25 feet. Based on where I'm putting the timer in the garage, the timer's going to be 25 feet from this point. And that's, of course, factoring in not just a straight line distance, but dressing out the cable, putting it back in the corners and the edges so that it's out of the way. Again, measured 25 feet. I'm going to go ahead and cut that cord to be about 30 feet long because I want a little bit of extra room to play with. I'll just have, if I end up with any extra cord, it'll just be sort of spooled in a little pile underneath the timer. And I just want to do that to give me a little flexibility in terms of where I place the timer. I might want to stick it on the wall over here or over there or lay it on a table. And I just want to have that flexibility to move it around.